Hi.
Hello.
Hi. Thank
We
you
made
so
it.
much.
Yeah.
It's
Thank
busy.
you.
Hi.
Woo. Wow.
All right. Thank you so much. So we have only 25 minutes and plenty to say, so let's get straight into it. Maybe let's start with you, Ernesto. So you're the co-founder of BGD Labs, ex-CTO of Avara. Can you tell me what are your current security challenges or concerns?
Well, for a bit of context, for those that don't know, so in BGD Labs, this is sometimes a bit tricky to understand, but we are doing the maintenance of the Aave protocol that I guess the majority of you here are using, all the majority of the development, and in this context, the security tasks, coordination, and so on. So challenges, I think that one of the to say something slightly different than in other places is one of the challenges is that we should be even being Aave and even if growth matters so much in generally in DeFi or is taken into account on the public sphere, we need to remain always very abstracted from the market, and focus on improving procedures, keeping the same quality, so that by itself seems maybe very simple, but sometimes it's not so easy because, growth is always good for the protocol. There are a lot of contributors. That is another challenge. That Aave is kind of a single brand, and that is very good, and why there is so many people today here, I guess. But at the same time, it's very decentralized, in terms of organization. You need to be left and right all the time. So that is.
So having robust processes and keeping consistent quality across the whole development
keeping
cycle.
Consistent quality, keeping improving, and abstracting a bit from the rest when you need to. So.
Thank you. So Fredrik Svantes, you are the protocol security lead of Ethereum Foundation. What is your main concern or challenge around security?
So I think one of the main challenges is to get people to understand the importance of protocol security. There's a lot of DeFi projects here today, for sure, that are building on top of Ethereum, and many of them might not consider the security implications if there's something that happens on the protocol layer, such as a consensus issue, which would split the network in two. There is the obvious risk that there would be a bug that caused someone to be able to mint infinity amount of ETH or something like that. There could be denial of service attacks on the network that would mean that all projects would stop functioning. Could be some issue in the Solidity compiler, which even though you wrote a very perfect smart contract, the compiler could compile it to something that it should not do, and that could also have severe effects on the project. So I think many of the DeFi projects have bug bounties of, say, $10 million or more. I don't know exactly what the max payout is today.
With less, without.
Yeah. So while they don't really consider the protocol layer stuff, so I think that is one of the major challenges that we have. To give some kind of numbers, we are 5 people in the team focusing full time on protocol security, which is covering everything in the Ethereum ecosystem from a protocol point of view, so all the clients, Solidity compilers, and obviously that is a bit of a risk, and I think that's something that we need to look at a bit more.
Yeah, sounds like not many people for something so important, for sure.
Yeah.
So, Sarah Reynolds, you're a protocol architect at Uniswap. What is your main security challenge?
So I think I'll. Oh, is this on? No. Okay. I'm gonna shout. Is this good? Can you guys hear me? Okay. Oh, here we go. That works. Hello. No. Hello?
Oh.
Ooh, okay. Hi. Main security challenges. So I've been working on building Uniswap v4 for about the last year or so. So I guess I'll mainly talk about kind of the security challenges we faced there. I think one of the first things that comes to mind is probably relatable to other engineers in this room. But when we launch protocols, I think of them more akin to building sort of hardware. So our protocols are not upgradable once they're live. If there's a bug, there's really not much we can do. We can't pause the protocol, we can't upgrade the protocol. And so as we're building V4, we have to think about security at every single kind of stage, at sort of the designing, the architecting, the building, reviewing, testing, and then also auditing. And one really interesting thing, too, is we've spent the last year building V4 in the open, and so we get a lot of pull requests on our, from community contributors, developers that we don't know. And from a security point of view and a reviewer of these code bases, you have to sometimes think, could this be a bug being introduced in the code? And so that's the level of scrutiny that we look at pull requests from outside contributors, but also our own internal developers. And so I think there's just a lot of emphasis on like review and auditing. And then the second thing I'll say that I've been thinking a lot about is Uniswap v4 is sort of a superset of v3. So we've built on all of the same math that we've used in v3, but now we've added more things. And so there's new inputs being kind of put into the system, and we don't have a testing framework like that in live today. And so a lot of our testing had to be sort of much more expressive.
Thank you. Hilmar, Orth, you are the founder of Gelato and of Arrakis Finance. What is your main security challenge?
Yeah, hello, test. Yeah, this works. So at Gelato, we help projects launch their own rollups. So we have like roughly 30 mainnets in production, closing into roughly $1 billion in TVL on it. And I think our security concerns are mostly on like all the off-chain systems and off-chain infrastructure, which basically make up these rollups. So I think many people sort of confuse security, the security of rollups with like, okay, you have a ZK rollup and suddenly everything is perfectly secure and you don't have to worry about anything anymore. But at the end of the day, if you look at the chains that are live today, okay, maybe it's this one, maybe switch, maybe just keep it still, don't move it.
I don't know.
I will just continue. But actually, I think what many people don't understand is the only thing that a ZK rollup gives you is it secures, it gives you a trust minimized way to prove to a settlement layer, being Ethereum, that the assets that are bridged into this rollup, that a certain state transition function has been executed on the L2, and then you can prove that back to the settlement layer, i.e. Ethereum. But if you look at most rollups today, actually, except maybe like Optimism mainnet or Arbitrum, most assets are actually not coming from the canonical bridges from Ethereum. They're actually bridged in, either minted natively on these chains, or they're bridged in via third-party bridges. So a ZK rollup or the fraud proof doesn't give you any security benefits to these assets that are on these chains. The bridges themselves are actually what provides them with the security, and they're usually multi-sig bridges. So I worry a lot about bridges. Of course, you have sequencers, you've got private keys that you need to manage, you give pre-confirmations to market makers that then bridge millions of dollars back and forth. So all of the security-related things we think about are very much off-chain. And the same happens with Arrakis, where we believe the future of on-chain market making is basically a verticalization of the MEV pipeline. And you are not only brokering with traders on-chain, but with solvers and block builders off-chain. And there you just have to make sure that all of these relationships which are then settled on, let's say, Unichain or Ethereum, are done correctly in a secure way. So you don't need to only audit smart contracts, but backend services and infrastructure services as well. So yeah, it's just getting more complicated.
So not only focusing on the on-chain smart contract parts. Okay, thank you very much. And I'm Emilie, founding partner of Chain Security. My main concern is to sell audits, of course. Um, I would really love to start with you, Fredrik. You said something. I think it's kind of crazy to think about how important your team is. Who do you think should pay for Ethereum security, and how do you think your team can have the means necessary to rise up to that challenge?
I think who should pay for it is a very complex question. I think we could spend the rest of the panel talking about that. But I think it's a mistake if DeFi projects only depend on the EF for like the underlying security. I know that's the case kind of today. With that said, all the clients are doing like a super good job with securing all the code. We have some part-time people helping out through the protocol security stuff. But I do think that if we are to succeed in the long term, we need to collaborate a bit more. It should not only depend on the EF. The EF could, theoretically vanish tomorrow, and what's going to happen then? Someone has to continue working on securing the protocol. That can be the bug bounty program, that can be making sure that clients are secure for the next hard fork, it could be ensuring that the Solidity compiler is working as it should be, etc., etc. Right now, it's very, easy for the EF to pay for this, but I think, like I said, in the long term, I think that we need more collaboration across the ecosystem to help fund this so that there's no single point of failure, basically. That would be my long-term vision, both for the bug bounty program and for security as a whole from a protocol point of view.
I have a question, actually.
Yeah.
How do you see about the communication between the DeFi projects and let's say your team or other teams of the Ethereum Foundation? Because for me, I'm long term in the space, 7 or 8 years, and still it really feels like sometimes I have communication with people from the Ethereum Foundation in other teams actually, but still feels that there is a huge disconnection, maybe even on DeFi especially, between the core engineers, let's say, of Ethereum and without a doubt the biggest developers, because it's very clear that it's for the interest of both Aave and everybody else, there will be no bug in Ethereum, but what do you think that could be improved there?
It could definitely be a lot of improvements on that side. So I think we should improve that. I'm not entirely sure how we should do it. We do these various security coordination calls, but those are pretty much closed, and it's more for client teams and so forth. I think they could potentially be value in.
For me, it's more in the core protocol calls. At this stage, it just feels that it's very generic things. It's not so much into the concrete. Sometimes there is something that affects potentially Aave, but does it really make sense to participate there? So
the all core devs calls are quite. They can be quite scary. If you're someone who's not used to it and you try to join the all core dev call, it can be quite a heated discussion from time to time, and I can understand that it's not super easy to just go there and say what you would like, for example. But it is actually quite easy. If there is a DeFi project that would like to have something implemented, it could be an EIP or something that would be valuable, then we have a process that allows people to come to the all core devs call and then do a presentation why that should be included.
It happened with Transient, for example. I know that it happens, but I don't know. I still have the feeling that there is sometimes a bit of disconnection, probably fault of DeFi projects like us.
No, I agree. I definitely agree. Like I said, we're a pretty small team, so we kind of put our heads down and focus on the protocol completely. As users, we obviously use a lot of DeFi protocols and such. But yeah, I do see value in more collaboration in that sense. for nothing else, to increase awareness of what's important to the DeFi projects and what we see as potential issues that could potentially be helped by the DeFi projects.
So maybe this is one takeaway from the panel already, that maybe there is something to organize in that way.
Like we need to do more dinners between
Yeah.
like DeFi and like the Ethereum, the five guys of Ethereum security. But should be more. Yeah.
What about you, Sarah? Do you feel like the communication with EF is easy and that they understand kind of your security challenges?
Yeah, so I mean, from my experience, I was part of championing EIP 1153, so I had joined some of those all-core dev calls. They can get quite heated. It was a really interesting process for me, I think. I think what I guess my takeaway a little bit from that was sort of sometimes application layer developers and, L1 developers, it's just there are different priorities. And so trying to figure out what is the best is not necessarily the same for like what maybe an application developer would like to see versus somebody else. And, it's a hard thing too, because there are many different perspectives and I don't know their side as well. So that's why I think some of these calls can be really heated. There's just so many opinions. But I will say it's a really great forum. It's super open. Anybody can join. Even if you don't want to join the call, you can watch the live stream on YouTube and there's a chat. And so I think it's it's very open. I think if you really wanted to participate, you can.
Nice. To stay on the topic of EF, you're going to organize an attackathon. Can you tell us a little bit about this, and maybe some people from the audience want to participate? Can you tell them about that?
Yeah, sure. So we have a bug bounty program today where we do rewards. We don't have $10 million bounties. We have like 250K, which might seem like tiny, but that's what we have in our bug bounty program. What we're doing as a bug bounty competition is that we're kind of condensing that into 6 weeks, and we are providing rewards of up to $1.5 million, basically. This is something that we actually tried to do a bit more decentralized, whereas not have the EF pay for all of it, but we actually reached out to multiple projects to try to get funding. We got some funding from some very generous projects.
Anybody on the stage?
I don't.
Oops.
I don't know if we reached out to each of them actually, to be honest, but I don't think so. It's very hard when we reach out to projects. They will say like, "Oh, but the EF has like an infinite amount of money, right? So why should we give anything?" That's not the case at all. The EF has a total war chest of like a bit over $900 million, which might seem like a lot of money, but when considering that there are multiple projects in this space running on Ethereum that has war chests of $3.5 billion, like $3.5 billion, or $3.1 billion, or $2.5 billion, and so forth. It's not that much. And again, it goes back to the whole and also something else that's kind of interesting. This was actually in a report from the EF a few days ago. When looking at like grants that are given out to the ecosystem, the EF is giving out, I think it's like 49% of the total grants. So there's a lot of funding going out from the EF. But we would like more projects to help with this, where we would be more of a coordinator and then get other people to participate. So it's, again, I don't want there to be a single point of failure. I want many projects to care about securing the protocol, and that's why I would be very keen to have more people kind of help out on that.
Yeah. Thank you. So we have very little time left, and I would like to talk, of course, about UniV4. Sarah, can you tell me what are the new security risks brought by UniV4? And can you give advice, maybe if there are builders in the room, how can they build hooks safely?
Yes. So where to start? It's hard to answer this quickly. I guess for some context, like with UniV4, we now introduce hooks, which are basically contracts that execute at sort of arbitrary sort of points in the life cycle. So in the middle of a swap or in the middle of an add liquidity action. And this is somewhat of a scary thing because it's any arbitrary external contract that you're calling out to. I think what I'll say, just how I think or how I see this going, is hooks should be designed with a very particular use case in mind. You can write a hook that does everything, anything in one contract, but the way that we've architected hooks is to be able to make the permissions very granular in what a hook can do, which means that users have a little bit more visibility into the sort of constraints of a hook. And so as a hook developer, I guess I would recommend like analyzing what those permissions are, thinking about kind of the worst case scenario from a user perspective of what can happen if these permissions are enabled on your hook, and try to see if you can minimize like what those, using those permissions. Yeah, that's what we'll stop there.
Thank you. Hilmar, can you tell us about the connection between UniV4 and Arrakis, and how do hooks influence the security of your project?
Sure. So Arrakis, hello. Arrakis is building on-chain. It's an on-chain market making protocol, and it leverages the most advanced on-chain liquidity protocols in order to enable projects to create liquidity for their assets on-chain, on Ethereum basis, and so forth. And what UniV4 enables, it enables you to have much more programmability around what sort of prices you want to quote for a certain pair on-chain. It used to be that you just have like a sort of regular bonding curve that was used in order to quote a price between, let's say, ETH and USDC, which was very inefficient, how much you could quote and what price you would quote, especially when you think about MEV on Ethereum, where latency of blocks is very large, like 12 seconds. Now with hooks, you have more granularity because you have pre and post sort of trade execution logic that you can run. And what Arrakis is really focused on is we believe that most of the advanced logic you need for quoting is actually like you have off-chain because you need to take into account in these more mature markets these days, not only prices on Ethereum or prices on Arbitrum, you need to take into account prices everywhere in order to quote the right price, because market making is all about getting all the information and then quoting the best possible price. And so you need to come to consensus around what is the actual price for ETH USDC right now, and then how do I get this on-chain to quote at block n+1. And Uniswap v4 enables you to do so, but for anyone depositing liquidity into any sort of protocols, when Uniswap v4 comes out, you have to be very careful, I would say, because it's not like in the old world where you just put it in, it's like, oh yeah, it's nice and secure, but your money can be gone, basically, if you deposit into the wrong hook. Especially the more complex they are, the higher the risk, of course. So basically, you open up programmability, and this, of course, comes at a trade-off of security. And so we always strive to have a very rigorous security process when releasing new sort of updates, which Uniswap v4 will be one of them. We have a hook that updates the price based on some off-chain logic that we have, and then we avoid MEV from our LPs due to that. And this we now have been testing on like our own systems live on Ethereum for the past 6 months already, and now we will be able to port this over to Uniswap. So there has to be rigorous testing because the old AMM world that was very simple is sort of gone, I would say, and now it gets more complex, but this also means it gets more risky.
Yeah. And as a user, you have to be really careful because then you don't know which hooks are secure yet. I think we might see a bit of a wave of, how could you say, a bit the far west, of people just building maybe with lower quality, and we're going to have to really sort what is high quality and what's not, what is secure and what's not. But I think you're doing a great job kind of helping teams get funded for audits, building libraries that people can use. So let's see.
Yeah, definitely. I think will be some really cool shared infrastructure, hopefully, that hooks can use and check out, at least in what some of the contracts that we've built around the protocol as well.
Cool. It's already the last question. So on your side, so Aave v3, soon v4, soon TM. So there's a lot of integrations with different chains and so on. I think, did this kind of trigger complexity over time? Like how would you say in terms of the development, what would you say could be the issues or the risk right now with all this complexity?
I think like the keeping the equilibrium like of what you try to add and what you, because Aave is an upgradable protocol. Like I'm a believer that basically everything is an upgradable protocol. Like even Ethereum itself is an upgradable protocol. Like so, things will just change over time. Like, and for me, what gives the value is like how you change those things. Like the people that is around, like the procedures that you follow, like the architectural ideas that you apply. Like so, in the case of Aave, obviously, like you need to be very, very careful with what you do. Like it's not as simple as whatever you think is a good idea, like you just apply it into Aave. Even if you think and you fully believe that you can do it safely, sometimes you just need to do a step back, like and say, okay, well, this feature maybe not, like for next time, like and of course, like is what you say, like. We reach like a point on where like the old protocols, it happened with Uniswap, on where like Uniswap v2, Uniswap v3, like they will probably still live like out there. Like Aave v2 is even with $1+ billion there, like and I think this pattern will repeat more and more on where in our case like Aave v3 will keep evolving at least for a while. Like then there will be new versions like Aave v4, like and just being careful. Like usually is the recipe, but no perfect one. So.
Thank you. We're out of time. Is there something you want to say real quick before we go? Sounds good. Thank you very much. Thank you guys for your attention.